I don't want anyone to ever have to get to that low to get to this. So, but to me, honestly,
Yes.
I was at my lowest I've ever. I started to finally feel like, okay, maybe I can do something. And after I bet every diet out there, I can tell you I've tried it. Sometimes I'll just go for a walk and be like, I've got to clear my head from this because it's like, sometimes those things still, like sometimes I'll get on the scale and I'm like, what? When I first started with my coach, she would have me every day write down 3 things I loved about myself. And I got to tell you, I did not do well with that.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of what inspired you to make this incredible transformation.
I'm Mary Iliff. I grew up, actually, I was a Lacan in Windham, Minnesota. I grew up my whole life. So did my husband, actually, down in Southwest Minnesota. We grew up there, and I honestly didn't, I think back on my high school career, and I think, I wore pajama pants. I had in a way, lack of self-pride. I think I always wore whatever I wanted to wear. I had no cares about anything, but I was a really great student, and I went off to college and got my marketing degree. So I kind of grew up always as in lack of better terms, kind of the fat girl, I guess, if you always want to say that. I always was heavy. I always had issues with my weight since I was a little girl. Honestly, there's no time in my life that I don't remember ever having issues with weight and having problems around that. But I grew up and I always was the funny person in everything. I even was a state speech winner in high school for humorous, because making people laugh, to me, now I look back and I'm like, it was because I wanted to get them to laugh with me and not at me, kind of idea. And so if they were laughing with me, it made me feel great, as well as I've always been a person that wants to make people happy around me, and laughing is the best medicine for anything. So I did that in high school. And then my husband and I, actually, because of his job, we moved out to Colorado in 2011. And we've been out here since then. And it was phenomenal. It was a great move for us because we both have really flourished and kind of found just some new interests and things like that. So we came out here, but we also became parents right before we moved. And then we, of course, have little children. It really, as a mom, took my weight issues and all that, exemplified it terribly, because as a mom, and many can understand this, you give everything to your kids and everything to your family and everything to everyone, and the glass is completely empty for you. And so it definitely got worse and worse over time. I've always been that kind of person that gives to everyone else, and I'm like, I'm fine. But it finally started to unravel for me that way. I became hugely depressed. The weight came on. I got to be about 252 pounds, and the weight was terrible, as well as I was having a lot of health issues then. Things just kind of kept getting worse and worse. And as you kind of keep getting farther in the hole, it happens like that. And so, I was even to a point where I didn't know if I wanted to continue in this life. And that makes me so sad. And I don't even like to tell people that a lot. I do share that a little bit because I want people to know it was a low. It was a super low when this happened to me. And I don't want anyone to ever have to get to that low to get to this. So, but to me, honestly,
Yes.
I was at my lowest I've ever, I was coming a little bit out of it. I had lost a little bit of weight on my own with my doctor. And that's something I can talk about a little bit. But I started to finally feel like, okay, maybe I can do something. And after I bet every diet out there, I can tell you I've tried it. So after doing all that, I kind of finally waved the white flag. And I was like, I'm done trying to get around this obstacle and at that time was losing weight for me. I didn't see it as anything else. I just thought it as a weight loss. I was like, I tried everything from pills and shakes. So I tried to get around the obstacle, but I never just tried to get over the darn mountain. You know what I mean? Just buck up and go, I want to do the right food. I want to move my body. I want to fix all those things. And I finally was like, I'm done. I've tried to get this in every way, but actually just doing the right thing. And so I think I got to that point where I was there. And so, which just kind of leads into what happened then. But I was on, this is the beauty of social media. Social media has both ends, but social media, I was on a group of moms page, and someone had asked for, if anyone knew of a personal trainer or coach or something like that. And the name Amy Vetters came up, and I was like, I know who that is in my town. I actually go to her tanning salon. And at one point I told her, I didn't even know where. I go, I love your shoulders. Her shoulders were just built. And I was like, shoulders to me are like, everything
Yeah.
for me. And I was like, shoulders. She's like, okay, thanks. Weird Mary.
Right.
She's like, I love your shoulders. Anyway. And on it, and I always thought those were like those were beyond dreams. Like, I'm like, I'll never get anything like that. But I'm like, if I could ever, pick one thing. So anyway, but I saw that name and I was like, wait a minute, that's her. I'm like, she does that. I'm like, so I actually messaged her in Facebook, and I go, and we had a consultation, and I was like, to me, that was probably the pivotal moment, because I finally was like, I could do this. Like, I think I really could do this. And I think I, at that time, knew too, I found the key to what I needed. And I think the whole thing behind this is also finding how your personality works and what you need. You know what I mean? Like, there's some very independent people. And then there's someone like me that if I, like, for example, I've done a weight loss where I had to go weigh in weekly. If I knew I was up, I wouldn't go weigh in that week. And you know what I mean? Like, I could get around it. I could like skip that.
Yeah.
I had someone now that every week I had to send a photo in. I had to give a report about how I was doing. I had to communicate with her. I had to show her my weight. I could not get out of it. And that's something that I needed. And so anyway, and then I know we're kind of jumping around, but that's really, first of all, where the pivotal moment of where I was like, I could do this. Like, I finally knew where I was like, quit playing the game and just do what you're supposed to do. And it hit me like that. And it kind of, that's the change in the direction my life went.
Right. And it sounds, like you said, you're at your ultimate low. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people wait for that low to actually make that transformation. So either way, I mean, you got there.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I'm saying. I don't want a lot of people to wait till they're low, because the low is really can be ugly. And to be honest, I'm so happy to myself that I had enough self-love in myself still to do something more. Like, I think when we get so low, it can be scary too, where we're just like, I give up and I'm not doing anything. And I think that woman in the past, that she still had enough self-love to go, and enough in her like belief in herself that I could do this. Like, I could actually, like, I can do one more thing, because I really was at a point like, this is my life. I'm just going to be like this. And you know what? I got to tell you that's what I'm saying. If I picked one thing, if I gave any advice, it's about a coach, because here's the thing, for me, it is, and I get it. It's not for everyone, but for most people, we try to do so much on our own, and we don't have the skill sets to do that on our own. I had such an idea that this good food and healthy food was going to taste like crap, and like all that, you know what I mean? Like, you have all these, and then I get someone that's like, well, what kind of food do you like? I'm like, well, do you like this? I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. You know what I mean? And she finally put together a food plan. I remember looking at it going, oh, I could eat this. I'm like, this is healthy. I'm like, sweet. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think again, we're so closed to what we know what we know, and that's it. And so having someone from an outside perspective give that to you and really be like a partner. Like, I felt like she grabbed my hand and said, we're taking this journey together. Let's do it. And I was like, okay, let's do this. So,
right. Yes.
like,
yeah.
I just even renewed my training, or my coaching, I mean, for another full year. It's something in my life that will never be given up, because I need that for me. And it's shifted in how I've needed it, but it's still something that I will never give up, because it's changed my life. And you never want to lose when you actually get to feel that and experience that. So anyway, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more about your voices of doubt. I think I heard one in there about, I'm never going to find a food that I like to eat. It's almost like we create our excuses in our brain. Those are the voices of doubt of like, nope, this is reason number one, I can't do this. Reason number two, but I know I can deep down, but I'm not going to, for this, and this reason. But can you tell me a little bit more about your voices of doubt or your fears going into this initially, even though you felt like you had all the tools?
Oh, the self-doubt was so crazy. I didn't tell a lot of people at first that I did this. Like, I told, of course, my husband, we had a discussion, and I kind of was like, I didn't really, because I failed at so many things, that fear of failure was there. And I think in the back of my head for the first few months, I absolutely, I think thought to myself, I'm going to fail at this. I'm going to fail at this. You know what I mean? Those self-doubt, that horrible voices in your head that continually come after you. And I really did. I think I fought it for a little bit at first. I really was like, oh no, you know what I mean? Like in my head, I was like, yeah, you'll probably not get this to work. It works for others, but it won't work for you. It's all that self-doubt, that horrible talk, as well as the guilt. Like, I'm taking time away from my kids. I'm taking time away from other people when I want to go work out or I want to do that. And so all of that horrible mom guilt, all that horrible like self-talk was absolutely in my head. I mean, I would be the poster child of self-doubt and self-fears and everything in my head. And really that didn't turn around until I truly started having a little success. And that's where I was like, okay. I mean, I had all the tools, I knew all that, but as soon as I started having a little success and I started seeing something, I'm like, wow, maybe I can do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like the true change of the mind started, but that's a continuous thing too. Like the self-doubts are still always there. Like there's always still like, it is a battle for me. And even my coach will tell me that. She's like, we're going to work on some of those things right now. So like right now I'm not what's called a prep. So like a prep is for when you prepare for like a bodybuilding competition. I'm in a growth season right now. So it's just growing my muscles and trying to get them bigger and just grow a little bit big that way. But it's also a time, I have a little more time on my hands. So right now, that's what I'm working on. I'm working on like helping, like continually work on my mind, working on boundaries, working on different things. So it's not just a transformation of your body. That's the easy part, I think. It's that transformation of the mind part. So it's something that after 3 years, they'll sneak their ugly little heads in and I'm like, no. Go back to that box and like, let's put some tape over it. So,
Yeah.
but they're there.
Yeah.
Those negative voices don't just disappear. They do get less, but they just don't always disappear. So it's a battle you have to constantly fight.
It is. So how do you want to, do you have any tips for battling? Do you have like a routine or something that you do when you're like, nope, we're not gonna think like that. What do you
I
do you
coach
have
right now.
any
She's like,
tips that way?
yes, I do. I seriously do stop. And I literally say that to myself. I'm like, Mary, you are so not going there right now. I'm like, and I literally have to, I almost have to put myself in like that coach position going, come on, this isn't true. Mary, that isn't right. Mary, stop that right now. And like, I literally have to talk to myself. Sometimes I'll just go for a walk and be like, I've got to clear my head from this because it's like, sometimes those things still like, sometimes I'll get on the scale and I'm like, what? But then I'm like, nope, the scale is not what tells me what my success is. You know what I mean? Like I have to do those things because I had 40 some years of all that negativity just doesn't go away. Do you know what I mean? Like you absolutely work on it, but it's still something that I always battle. And that is something again, and this probably will get annoying to your listeners, I guess, but I go back to that time. A coach is not there just for let me get healthy. A coach is there to help fix this up here because if you don't fix it up here, you won't fix anything else. And so that's why like I had a terrible car accident back in August with my son, and it was really, really terrible that mentally it really was screwing with me. And the person that besides my husband and everyone, but the one I talked to the most that was like, get the about the negative thoughts that, the scary thoughts that come in your head was my coach. It was like, she called me and she's like, we're going to take some breathing right now and calm down right now. Cause I'd be calling her hysterical. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was trying to deal with everything with my kids and everything. And that's the person that you're like, that's who I need in my corner. It's not just about seeing me on a stage or it's not seeing me. It's getting me as a better person. And so definitely, I think, I journal a lot now. I used to not journal ever, and journaling has become a huge thing for me too. So I definitely recommend that to others because I look back at my old journals and I'm like, whoa, it's a little bit like, wow, I can't believe that's how my mind worked. But it was such a truth. It's a great truth serum too to yourself. Going, wow, that's what I used to be like. That's what I used to think. That used to be, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think too, like if you're being negative about yourself, when I first started with my coach, she would have me every day write down 3 things I loved about myself. And I got to tell you, I did not do well with that. I'd be like, I love your nose. I love my nose. It was like, I was fine because I didn't love anything about myself, but eventually it started to grow and grow and grow. And so I still sometimes, I don't have to do that one up quite a bit anymore, but I sometimes when I'm feeling down about myself, I start going back about what do I love about myself? You know what I mean? And I start that list of loving myself because that's probably the best gift I can give myself as well as my kids, my family, my friends, because it definitely is, it makes a person a different person when they actually love themselves. So yeah.
Oh, 100%. And those are the things that you need for yourself, because how can you give those to others if you don't have them yourself? It just makes it harder. That's when your cup goes dry.
And that's what I see for moms so much. And I just want to shake them and go, I'll say, like, I don't have time because my kids, I'm like, you have to find the time for yourself. Like, I know we have every excuse in the book of everything. And that, yes, we could honestly fill our whole, and I could fill from morning to end. But at some point, I can't give anymore if there's nothing left inside this tank. And so that's why when my kids, I can tell you 100% right now, if I said, pick me 3 years ago or pick me now, they had more of my time 3 years ago, but they have a lot more quality time with me and they have a happier mom. And they would say without a second thought, they would go, now, absolutely right now, because I'm just a different person and much better mom, wife, friend, everything, because I'm happy. And when you are happy and you have stuff left inside that tank, you can give out. And
Yes.
yet you also make sure I never go below, a quarter of a tank. I make sure that my tank always has stuff in it, or a half a tank, because I've learned if I go low, again, I don't do well. And then the people around me don't do well. So yeah. And I think it's looking at it's just to add to that, looking at your life of going, how much time do you spend on social media? How much time do you spend on some of those things that you could maybe give up?
Can start to prioritize different things, or does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So like one thing that I do to make life a little bit simpler. So every Sunday, for example, I put at least 2 hours aside, and because our weekends are a little bit less crazy. So on weekends, I food prep. So all my food is completely made for the week. And so, that accomplishes a couple things where I have my food. So I have no excuse outside of like, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. All my food is ready. So I make sure that is always done. And at first it takes a lot longer, but I'm quick at it now. Now I'm like, okay, I got this coming up. So I'm going to make more of my protein bags. I'm going to make more of this. I'm going to, you know what I mean? And so it becomes such a routine that it really is a quick thing. So I do that. Other things that I do, I think too, just setting those habits up is huge. And so when I was so depressed, I was sleeping forever, and I would sleep hours upon hours. And I was like, okay, I've got to I put this is old school a little bit, but I put my phone way across the room. So I had to get up and go turn it off. So I'd actually get up, you know what I mean? I'd have always my workout clothes right next to my phone. And I'm a person that I'm really great at guilt. Like I guilt myself in a lot of things. And so if I saw my clothes and I went back to bed, I know the guilt would be there. So I never hit a snooze. I always those are the things that I'm like, okay, you're not snoozing. You're not doing, there's just a few things in my life that I'm like, I just get up and I get moving and get going. I have my clothes laid out, exactly what I'm going to do. I have always, another thing that I do is, and I think people might find this annoying, but at the same point, if you want to get something done, you got to figure it out. So I have a calendar every week, and I lay out hour by hour from my work to my workouts. Like, and sometimes I'm not saying that it sticks to that always, but I always say, okay, I'm going to get my gym done right away in the morning. So I wake up at 4 a.m. and I figure out when everything gets put in there so that I can, when I go to bed, there is A, no guilt, there's B, knowing I accomplished a lot, and C, I'm going to wake up with a strong start for the next day. So, I mean, I get so crazy about, I'm such a creative person, and this shocks people that now I love organization. I'm like, oh, it's so great, because I've seen how it makes my life so much simpler. Like I literally on Sundays too lay out every single one of my workout outfits. It has every piece, so I don't have an excuse around it. So I pick it up, I go, I get ready, I go to the gym. Does that make sense?
I love it.
A bag every night. I make taking that bag to work because I'm going to the gym right after. It's filled. It's got everything in it. I take it. So making those things inside your life makes things a little bit easier. But we really do, like, my husband and I always used to joke, because he does, his job is really, really crazy. And he used to say, I don't know if I have time. Guess what? He's found the time because we discuss it. We're like, yeah, you might lose a little bit of sleep. You might lose a little bit here, but you can find it somewhere if you figure it out. And so, and I, the guilt again, even with dads is, I'm not here as much. I want to be with the kids. But at the same point, is it quality with the kids or is it quantity? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Quantity versus quality is so huge. So I'm a better parent when I'm this way. So they'd much rather have me this way than having a lot of time with me and it being kind of a very cranky mom.
Right.
So that's, yeah, definitely, putting habits in place will definitely save you on making those huge changes because they save me all the time. Like when I'm doing a prep for a bodybuilding competition, I'm working out about 4 hours a day. I have to find that in my normal life. It's like, and my son is in all these things, my daughter's in all these things, and I'm going to all these events. I literally lay it out. And sometimes it is sleep that takes it, but is it worth it to you? Then you say yes and you move forward. But then you just find it and I create habits so that I don't have an excuse out of any of it.
Yes. So. Yeah. Between meal prepping and all, did you kind of tackle them all together? Did you just take piece by piece? How did that go for you?
Yes. Absolutely, piece by piece. Like, the first thing I implemented was food. And so I on Sundays, that was the first thing my coach had me do was like food prep. She's like, this is the key to it all. So food prep. And so that has been in my life for 3 years now. Almost, if I have anything going on where I figure it out when it gets done on the weekend. It's never not done on the weekend. And if I'm gone or something, then I do it 2 weeks prior. I freeze it and I pull it out because that's how important it is. Because if I have a week without, I honestly don't know what it's like to have a week. I do on vacation without food prep. I hate it because when the guessing game is gone, for me, that really helps me. That really helps me to just go, I got it. I pull it out. So when I'm trying to figure out my macros and everything, I'd rather not think about it. And so food prep was the first thing I added. A large thing of water. I started putting a timer on my phone because I eat 6 times a day and I wasn't used to that. I was used to skipping meals and then eating a whole plethora at the end, So I put timers on my phone for that. I put timers on my phone when I started to really try to implement water. I started, every time I found something, I'm like, okay, I need to work on getting this better. Like I'm not doing as well on this thing. How do I make that better? And then that's where I'm like, okay, I'm going to create this habit and I do that. You know what I mean? And so it gets it down to where, like I said, I even now, the newest thing is I lay out my clothes for every day of the week for my workouts. Because then I'm like, I know what days I'm doing those because it's in my calendar. So I know I wear different things for whatever I'm doing because I need to either wear just different things for whatever for each one. That's a long story. But so I just do that every single weekend. I make sure that I hit my week running so that it's a successful week. And so by just taking one thing at a time, but if you pick one thing, pick food prep. Pick food prep over anything, I would tell anyone.
Yeah.
And it makes it when you're in the car going, I'm so hungry. You're like, oh, wait a minute. I have my packed food right here. I can pull this out and eat it. And it's going to be a much better, healthier food than if I run through a drive-through. You know what I mean? Because when you're super hungry, you make terrible decisions in that. And so I have to, and that's a weakness of mine. So I had to eliminate it somehow. And food prep, again, is the only way to do it. So,
yeah. But looking back, what do you consider probably your most significant lesson that you have learned about yourself through this entire process?
My biggest lesson that I've learned about myself, I think the biggest lesson is that I have to, and I keep reiterating this part, but when I don't love myself, I'm a really ugly person. Like I will hurt myself with words. I will hurt the people I love with words. I will hurt because I'm hurting. So I want other people around me to hurt that way. Only my loved ones though. Like I'm a super sweet person to everyone externally, but the people that love me the most, that won't leave me, I'm really mean to them. And I'm not the nicest person. And I got to tell you, finding this has truly brought me happiness, which also helped bring that self-love to myself. And so I truly can say today, and I don't know, I know 3 years ago, I never could have said, I love myself. I love who Mary Iliff is. Like, I love who I am, what I've become, what I stand for, what I believe in, and what I'm doing with my life. And I know 3 years ago, I couldn't have said one of those words, like nothing like that. And so to me, that's a pivotal moment because when you start to love yourself, you don't look at the food as, oh, it's healthy food. You know what I mean? You look at like, that's fuel. That's fuel to fuel this body of mine now. This is like, I go to the gym, I'm able to get up, I'm able to lift that heavy weight. I see it as all gifts of everything. And so, by loving myself, I fuel myself lovingly and I fuel others lovingly. Like I wish, I wish in a way I had just even an ounce of video of how I look back in my life, and it makes me sad because my kids had to grow up a little bit with that really angry person and that really um that person I'm not proud of who I was. But man, the relationship now as my kids are getting older that we have is so beautiful because and I say that and I can't tell you how I love my relationship with my family and my kids. And a lot of it is because of me. And it's because I've changed. Like, you know what I mean? Like that I've helped fix this family into such, I mean, we're a great nuclear. I mean, we're wonderful together. And I think it's a lot because I became happy. And by becoming happy, they're all really happy too, because as moms, we control a lot of what's going on in this house. We control a lot of what our kids do.
Yes.
We control a lot of stuff, how they feel. And so when we as moms are happy, that gets reflected onto our kids. And if I even take this a second farther, my kids now love to work out and not like, and there's some people like, well, I hope it's not unhealthy. Not. My kids like to fuel their body healthy now. They love to go to the gym and be like, I'm getting stronger. I'm getting, like they're both in sports. They want to be strong for their sport. They want to be like they've seen that. And that's a really, to me, like I always had a fear before I had children was that they were going to have weight issues like I did. And my kids now have learned this love of healthy eating, healthy living, and they want to live it too. And I'm like, that's the best compliment I've ever been given because they see it in a positive light. They don't see it as it takes away from mom's time. It takes away whatever. They see it as a really positive thing. Yeah. So self-love is absolutely the turning point to me that really made everything click.
Yeah, that's amazing. Some of the things that people would tell you during your transformation that you maybe had to overcome as well of like, what are you talking about? Because I think that's another reason a lot of people don't want to do it. What are people going to say?
Yeah, it's really interesting. People say the weirdest things to you, and you're like, like someone's like, I would do that, but I don't want to look so masculine. I don't want to look so much. I'm like, believe me, the hours in the gym and the food I eat on a regimen, I'm like, it takes a lot to get truly like buff and all that stuff. It takes a lot. So I'm like, like I've had someone say that they didn't want to do well. They didn't want to do that because they're like, I'm so worried I'm going to look. I'm like, it takes way too much time. I'm telling you, it takes a lot of effort and energy. But I think people, I've had people say, I hope your daughter doesn't get worried about her weight, like you're, with all this emphasis. I'm like, my daughter and I have conversations constantly about self-love and self-improvement and like all of that stuff, and so, and that's, I really, I'm so proud of my kids and how they've really taken this and run with it too. And what we've done as a family. But, relationships is probably one of the biggest challenges through a lot of change like that. And if anyone thinks they're going to enter a true like transformation and not think the people in your life will change, I'm just going to be honest. It happens. I don't know one person that has transformed that hasn't had some relationships change. And I really see relationships sometimes now. I read a quote or one time, something about sometimes friends are seasonal and that's okay. Like they're in your life for a certain reason at a certain time. And then there's people that leave and they just, because you both have changed, it just doesn't work anymore. And I had a really hard time with that. But I think back, and I'm going into a lot of tangents here, but I think back on my life and I was so desperate to have people in my life. Like I had such low self, and my family wanted to do something. I said, no, I can't do that with you because I already told this person yes. And I was like, I gave them everything. I gave my friends always everything. And that's kind of what they signed up with. Some of my friends signed up with. And through that, I don't blame them. I turned into a different person after that. I started saying, I can't do that. Or I need to do this with my family. Or, you know what? I need to make sure I give myself a little bit of time. Or I'm really tired. I'm not able to do that. And I started like putting boundaries in there. And
That's a
that
tough
always
word.
wasn't a great it changes relationships. And I am just as much guilty of those changes as anyone else. And we just change as people. And it's okay sometimes to let go of relationships when it doesn't work anymore. And that's okay because then you allow others also that as you've changed, those people come into your life too. And so, I've gotten a lot of new people in my life too that have a lot of the same goals, which I really do love. And like we have a lot of the same passions. But I really feel like, it was an adjustment at first with my family. So another thing that I did with my family when I was going to do this is I sat them down and I said, so after I first started, I didn't do this right away, but my coach figured out my personality. So when you said find your strengths, my strength is competition. I'm a very competitive person. Well, I've always known that, but my coach figured it out without me telling her that. And there was a challenge, a 6-week challenge, and she's like, I think you should do this. And I was like, yeah, I should do this. Okay, I'll do this. I'm like, and when I can control everything, I love that kind of thing because I never did well in group projects because I always like, I want to be in charge. So anyway, so I did it all. So, but if I knew I could do it all, I knew I could do well then. Like if it was all in my power, I'm good. So I did that first challenge. And right before I did it, I sat my family down and I said, I'm going to do this. And it was a $5,000 reward. And I said, I'm going to win this thing. And I said, what I need from you is I have a couple jobs that I'm not doing anymore in this house. I'm like, one is the dishwasher. The kids, you got this one, one. And then we just kind of went through some of the different chores that I had. And I said, you're old enough now to do this. So I'm not doing it. So, because when I'm home, I want to spend quality time with you guys. And so you got to help me out with some of this stuff. And so ever since then, they've been doing the dishes now for 3 years. They've been doing all these things they keep doing because we never let them go really. But even like it made them part of the experience with me. So when I won, they were like, well, this first one I didn't win. The second challenge I did win. They were like, you know what I mean? Like they were part of that, but they were also part of the change I needed to make in my life. And so, and they got to see like a piece of what mom had to do all the time that they took for granted. So it's absolutely okay to make your family take on some of those duties and some of those things. As moms, we take it on and we don't have to take it on. It's like, absolutely, they can help with some things. As they get older, they can keep taking more on because guess what? They're going to have a household someday of their own and they got to know how to do all these things too. And so, but I think that it makes them appreciate mom a little bit more too.
Oh, so. 100%. And
I totally went off on a tangent.
No, it was a beautiful tangent. It was beautiful. And the thing that I love about it too is you're showing your kids how to support somebody to be their best self. And that is something, and to support somebody through something that means a lot to them. And it's just so beautiful. It gives me a little, and it's so crazy that people would even tell you, with your daughter, I hope this isn't something that turns into, and it's not, because not once have you said, I want to be skinny. I want to be this.
No.
It was, I want to love myself. And that's it. And that's what transformations should be about. Not about,
that's right. And when I'm doing bodybuilding, you absolutely get really small. You get really small in there. Well, I mean, I get really muscular, but I get small in like body fat and stuff like that. And I think that's sometimes where people see it. And I'm like, my daughter knows this is absolutely a short-term thing. It's for one specific goal. And guess what? That body fat's coming right back on after I'm done with this one specific goal because it's not healthy. And I think that's where my life has changed. It used to be about looks. It used to be about a size. Like in the more, and I call them my immature years of like, as we get older, we start realizing how important health is. Like before it was like, I want to look good in a swimsuit on this, whatever. But as I've gotten older, it's about, I want to live long. I want to be here for my grandkids. I want to be here in it, but I also want to be an active person. Like I want to be someone that's on the floor with my grandkids someday. I want all this health stuff. And so to me, it all goes back to being like, it is now my true effort now. It started probably more as a visual, like I wanted to feel, look smaller, but it definitely has turned into such a thing about health. And that if you're doing what's right for health, the other parts just fall into place naturally.
Exactly. It's just an effect.
That's the beauty of it. It is. Yep. They're a great after effect of it all.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that is, yeah. Um, Let me see here. How has this change really changed? How has this transformation for you changed your idea of success and happiness? Because I also feel like that's something too. It was like maybe in, when we were younger, it was, about being skinny or whatever it was, or feeling good in a swimsuit, those sorts of things, which are all great. um,
Yeah,
but how is it?
wonderful.
Yeah, and how has it kind of changed your perspective or your perception a little bit about success and happiness together? Because I feel like those so many times people put those two things together, and that's dangerous unless you're
Right.
identifying, you know, what it is.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I think too, like what your definition of success, everyone's definition absolutely is different and what they associate success with. Like, so I definitely like when I was growing up, success was always in what are you going to do for a career and how far are you going to get in it? Does that make sense? Like that was success to me always. Um, I never saw success as such a, like when I was in some of those competition things like speech and stuff, like success was winning. Like, you know what I mean? But definitely success for me has changed to be um success is waking up every morning and I'm happy to wake up. Like I am like I get to wake up today and I get to do this and I get to achieve this and I get to there is nothing better than waking up every morning and feeling such a purpose and such an overall I'm truly just happy with life. And it's like that. If I was telling someone the other day, I wish I could, like scratch and sniff. I'm like, I wish I could give someone a moment that one day of feeling what this feels like, because it would give everyone, after you feel it, you won't get rid of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like you will want to shoot for that. It's a feeling that it's hard to explain to people, but it's honestly the best thing I've ever like. I look back and I look at that and I just want to kiss my old self and go, you did good. You did this. Like you moved and you actually put yourself first and you had enough. Like I truly look back now and I'm like, I love you I'm so glad that you had enough love inside yourself still to do something. And so I
yeah,
think success to me is also I have two amazing kids that really are respectful to others. They're kind to others. They have bright futures. They care about themselves and their friends and their family, and they love family time. And I'm like that to me again. Like success changes, but that's a successful thing to me as a parent. And that it's just and they're proud of their mom. Like I'm like that's success. Like I got two kids that are never ashamed to say this is my mom. You know what I mean? And
yes,
like they'll say they love me in front of their kid friends, and I'm like that's success to me. So I know it's all different. And I think everyone's different about that. But that's how I really see success is like, and success is going to the doctor, like that's another thing, like from the health standpoint, there's success in that too. And like, I just had my levels done. Like every time I have a show, I do my levels about 8 weeks later, just to make sure I'm still healthy and in line of things. And my doctor goes to me, Mary, and I've been with her for like, I think 10 years now. She goes, it's so crazy to look at these levels and look and think this is you now. She's like, I was pre-diabetic. I have no signs anymore of, I have hypothyroidism, but I had Hashimoto's. She's like, you have no signs of Hashimoto's anymore. You have no signs of my cholesterol was going to be a point where I probably was going to have to start thinking about medicine. I had all of these things going on with myself. And she goes, if I showed these levels to anyone, they'd say this is an athlete. And she's like, Mary, I just put the word Mary and athlete together. And I'm like, it's mind blowing to me that I could take my health and just get it down. She's like, your numbers really can't get too much better. She's like, literally, I take another, she's like, I need to have a little more mega. That's about it. She's like, and so I sit there and that's such a proud moment because I used to dread going in. I would always do my levels. And every time I go in, and she was so sweet about it, but we'd be trying to find how could I do this? How could I try to, because it affected everything. So that to me is another success that I would have 3 years ago. If you would have told me that, I would have been like, that's cool. That's success. And if it could happen, it would be great, but probably won't. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I think about how I never thought what I'm living now. And people say, oh, you must just be, I'm like, I'm beyond my dreams because what I'm living now is wasn't even in my dreams. It wasn't even like a concept of that thought that I could live this way. And so to be living this way and it continually gets better, it's like, man, that's ultimately life. That is a
Yeah.
phenomenal ride, and I'm glad to be on it. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well, and that's what I would love people to know about making these transformations, because as hard as it sounds and as hard as it, um, all these changes that you have to make daily and, getting out of your comfort zone, is just one of
Mhm.
those things where it's like, but it's, you have to at some point pick your heart, too. And
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And, and change,
I just Yeah, I just read a quote that said, if you don't lose the chance, or no, sorry, take the risk or lose the chance. And I was like, that's so true. It's like, take the risk and that's the thing, like, have enough belief in yourself that you somehow already got where you're at. So you have to have this inner person that deserves more and deserves better. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give yourself that gift of, um, and what's crazy to me is most of those people are givers just like I am. Most of us are. Most of us like to help everyone else but ourselves. And the thing is, if we just put a little bit of the time that we give to others and put it onto ourselves, what a difference it would make. And that's all I'm asking from people is that, or to think about for a second is, what I give this person, what if I gave myself that same thing in return? Wow, what I could do for myself. Because none of my friends would I ever say, you can't do that. You couldn't do that. What? You can't do that. You know what I mean? I would never say that to my friends because I truly believe you all can do that. But I never had that belief inside myself for me. And it's
yes.
like, how sad is that? But like, you know what I mean? Like, we should be our best friends. We should be our first and foremost biggest advocate, and we are not.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think that happens with us as women, as what us as wives, us as mothers. We just take it all on, and we forget of who we are. So,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. So many people get stuck in this comfort zone because it's familiar, because even if they feel like crap, they know they're going to feel like crap again tomorrow, and that's familiar. So it's like you're
Absolutely.
stuck in this loop until you just decide,
And it's an ugly loop. It is. It can be such an ugly loop. And I have so many people that write me messages and they'll say to me, like, hey, like, I started doing this challenge for something. I did great for the first 3 weeks. Then I got sick. And I think a lot of people need to know this. You will probably get sick. Like, your body's going through change. And so something's gonna probably happen. And it's sometimes like all you're looking for to get out of it. And you know what? I've always said to myself, like, when I'm even sick, now I'm better about it. But when I would get sick, and when I was really into this, I was always that back of my head worried about the old habits coming back. I would say to myself, you're going to do something while you're sick. I don't care what it is. You're either going to go for a walk, you're going to go do something, but you're going to eat right too while you're doing this. Because once you lose track of that, you get in those old habits. They are constantly itching there and they're ready to get to you. So just like you have to fight them until basically they're not even a fear anymore. And it takes like I can honestly say now that I don't have a fear of going back anymore. But I up until probably I don't know, probably 2 years, at least 2.5 years, it was that constant fear of old habits sneaking in. And I finally feel like I'm at a point where it's still lightly a fear, but it's not like anything it used to be. But I think you have to fight those things. Like, you have to fight those, I call them the demons in my head, but the negativity that we have.
yeah,
And people will say, does it get easier? I don't know if it gets easier, but it gets a way of life. Like, does that make sense? So in a way it gets easier because you've made it so much part of your life. And so making that part of your life makes it a little bit easier. And so, like, I mean, it absolutely, like, I have to say right now where I'm at, like, I'm growing. And so to me, it's like, I've got my food under control. I've got my plan for eating right. All that stuff is going really well. And so in a way right now, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's just part of my lifestyle now. Like, when I do a prep, now that's absolutely, that is really, really hard and really hard. But I think, like, the way I'm at right now, it's just become part of my lifestyle and
yeah.
it's not hard anymore like that. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. It's just
So
easier to
you have to
stay.
it is.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. You make this is your life now. It's not the old, like, I sit there and I think about, like, on weekends, the amount of calories that I would consume probably. I look back at that and I think, wow, you know what I mean? And how crappy I felt, how my body, like, I just wish people could feel what it feels like to have your body put the right nutrients in there, the right, like, everything in there, working it. Like, it is a phenomenal feeling to feel your body actually like feeling so good that you're like, I can tackle anything right now.
Yeah.
It's a natural high. And so it's a beautiful thing. And so I just wish that's the one thing I think would hook, line, and sinker everyone to move forward if they could just feel it and experience it.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more with you. And it's almost to a point where it's like you can't unknow the feeling. So what is your vision for the future? What does the future for Mary look like at this point?
So I am, I'm laughing. I'm 45 years old and I'm still changing, but I'm actually studying now to get my nutrition certificate. So I really feel like what I've been given is a gift, and I have absolutely fallen in love with it. I feel like I could really help, and my coaches, talk to me about coaching. And so I really feel like that's my next goal, is to really help what I've been given. I want to give to others now. And so, and I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it really has been, I look at what a coach is and what a coach brings. And there's some priceless pieces that I feel like I have that others, that it's really hard to have. Like, you cannot teach experience. Like, I've known what it's like to walk into an airplane going, should I ask for the seat extender now or when I get in my seat? Like, or when I walk into a church going, okay, I got to sit where there's something underneath, like a base, so I don't break you know what I mean? I'm scared I'm going to crack the pew. You know what I mean? Like, to know what it's like to be extremely overweight like this and to have lived that life is something that you cannot be taught. And so, like, I've had that experience. I've had the experience now of what it's like to battle those demons and to like retransform that your whole life over, and the difficulties, but the amazing parts of it. And so, like, that part I have too. And so really what I'm lacking is that nutrition, really understanding more like the nutrition and how it affects your body and things like that. I may understand now like good food and all that nutrition, but I need to understand now what I'm working on is how it affects your body, like why you need to take this many different macros of different things. So, and then also the art of coaching, like that's the part. But I have an amazing mentor, my coach, and so that's what I'm looking at. I mean, eventually, honestly, I would love to own my own gym someday and have, wake up every day and go to a gym and help, do like from everything from personal training to being a coach to all that stuff. And we'll see someday if that happens. I would love it. And at this point, I've really learned, and this has taught me too. I've always been like, oh, I want to do this. Like, I always jump to big things, and I'm kind of like, well, you know what? We're going to get this underneath our belt, and then we're going to take the next step, and we'll see where it takes us. And I have the dreams, but we'll see what I've kind of let life determine where it's going to go a little bit. I'm going to be in control, but at the same point, I've kind of like, where does our life go? We'll see from there. So anyway, but I mean, I love doing this, and so somehow it has to be incorporated into my life to change other people, because like
Yeah,
said,
and that's a
it's a
powerful
gift that
position to be in as
I'm
well, is
thankful
to,
for every morning.
not only
Every morning I
inspire,
wake
but
up,
to be able
it brings
to
tears to my eyes.
literally take
Every
people
morning I wake
through
up.
a transformation, a transformation
Right.
of mind and
Right.
body.
Right.
Yeah.
It
And
is, and it's so crazy to think that that was me. Like, I mean, that's the crazy part. Like, I look back and I think, I even had to have skin removal surgery because I had so much extra skin from all the extra, um, such extra weight on myself and stuff. I mean, everything I've been through, I feel like, and that's what I would really like to help is the people that at this point would probably be the people that really are struggling with weight, and because weight is just a symptom of the real problem. It's not really what's the whole thing going on. It's all up here. And so battling this gets the rest of it going. So
yeah.
but yeah, that's what I hope to do. I really hope to do that. Well, not hope. I mean, that's another thing I've learned. I'm like, no, I'm finishing that. So I'm hoping to have that finished by beginning of February, my nutrition class, and then we'll kind of go from there. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that's the next.
That's exciting.
You want to, and I really would like to. For me personally, I'd like to shoot for my pro card. So I'm going to take this next year and just build, because to be really considered as a pro, I need to be bigger. I need to have bigger lats. I need to have my legs bigger. And so I'm growing that way. And we'll see. Like, I think I'm going to take this year. My son is a senior, so I'm enjoying this year with him too. And so for my family, I had to be fair with them too, because during a prep, they give up time and a lot of things for me for that time. I try to balance a lot of it, but they still have to help me a lot. And so I said this year, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to grow. And then I hope if I can, at least shoot for my pro card, and we'll see where that goes. And, it's always good to shoot for something. So hopefully, and I'll see where it takes me.
Yes. Anybody you'd like to give a little shout out to thank for, supporting you through this journey?
Yeah, I look back at even my family in Wyndham. Like when I did my shows, they all got on, they all got the ticket and got on and watched me and supported me and were texting me. And, my niece Katrina went with me to my very first show. She was my support for that show. And so family has been so phenomenal. Of course, my husband is always, if people that know my husband, he's the opposite of me. He's quiet. He's very much an introvert. But anytime I'm like, I want to do this, and he's like, okay, here we go. And he's always backing me. I'm so thankful. I have such an amazing husband. He's always like, oh God. It's kind of like when I'm like, I want to have this animal. And he's like, anyway, but just kidding. So he's always like willing to push me. So I'm really thankful. And of course my kids and my parents. But I have some really amazing friends that have also like especially when I'm going through a prep, it's mentally really draining for me. And they'll constantly be, so I don't get to see a lot of people during that time because my time really goes to my family and my workouts. And that when you're doing it, it's really intense. And they're still texting me and saying, how are you doing today? Like, are you doing okay? And so those people that care just so much about me. And then my last one, it really is my coach on the final thing on that is that I think about back in 2020, she threw me a lifesaver, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm sitting there and I felt like I was drowning and I got to hold on to something. And it's like, not only did she bring me to shore, but man, she has taken me on the most wildest journey. And when I didn't believe I could do this, she did. And you need to have that, I have that in my husband and you have that in the people you love. Sometimes they're too close to you that way. So having this person a little bit on the outside that's like, I know you can do this. Like, you stop talking that way to yourself. You can do this. Like, I know you can do this. And I remember thinking so many times, like, you're a fool. I have no idea why you think I can do this, but okay. But I'm like, and now it's like, I see everything she's told me I could do. And I'm like, and then she's like, we're just started. And I'm like, and now I finally got that same mentality. So I look at that and I know a lot of people think, oh, she's really up, but my coach has been a life changer for me. And so having that person in my life will always be that person in my life, as well as she's now become such a good friend that I can go to other things with her on that stuff. But just if a coach should be someone that you can have the softs and the hards and all that stuff with, that they can help you through, because it's really hard to do it on our own. And it's hard to have your own family do that sometimes. So just having that external, and the other thing I want to say is that people like me need to have someone in their life that will be very honest with them. Does that make, and I hope this makes sense when I say this, but it's like when I go to my husband, how do I look in this dress? He knows damn well, don't tell me I don't look good in it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that you're just going to make me cry. Say that. But I've had so many people in my life do that, where they're just like say the kind words because they think that that's what they need to do. It's a little bit of enabling. And she will be honest. And I know every time she tells me something, it's from the heart and it's to make me better. But it's the honest truth. And I think sometimes too, in our society a little bit, we're getting so far away. We make things so nice and cozy, but we forget the truth is really, there's value in truth. I can deal with the truth. Like, this is this way and I can deal with it then. And so that was a really huge realization for me, that I needed someone like that in my life, telling me the things that I probably didn't want to hear, but I needed to hear. And so I think too, when you look at that and have that, look at what you really need, and it's not what you want, it's what you really need. And that's what I really needed in my life, is someone that I will always, like, I go to her and I'm like, this might get ugly, but tell me the truth, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, and like, I'll say to her like, oh, okay, I'm getting taken advantage of for this. And she's like, where's your role in this? And I'm like, oh, you're right. I didn't put boundaries up. So just when you look at that, and I went off on my tangent, but I'm so thankful for having someone in my life that would do that I could separate from my family and have someone externally just help me with that whole like realization of really what I could do and have that external thought. So a coach was life-changing for me. And I will scream it from the rooftop that it's the best thing I've ever done. And it's the most life-changing thing I've ever done.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts or any, I mean, like I said, this is packed.
I think if some, my biggest, we didn't talk about if you're, the advice to someone if they're thinking about doing this, first of all, just, I think you really need to decide, is this what you really have to be honest with yourself. Is that what you really want? And are you willing, if you so want it, what are you willing to change to do it? And that's where I think sometimes we jump into so many things, but we don't, do we really, really want it? If we do, like, what am I willing to change? Like, am I willing to put boundaries up on this? Am I willing to, so before you start, I really think it's a great personal conversation to have with yourself about what you're willing to give up to get there. Does that make sense? And so I hope people that do, I absolutely want people to do it, but I want people to do it and be successful. And so to do it, you really do have to think through, like, how much is it worth it to you? And I think that's where, and then also I love your whole concept of the book is like thinking about your strengths. Run with your strengths. You got strengths, run with them. And if anything, just start really digging in of the self-love. Like, start making your list of 3 things you love about yourself. And listen, you can't repeat them either. So you constantly have to try to start loving more and more of yourself. And so just do that, because loving yourself it's the best gift you can give yourself as a parent, as a mother, as a wife, as a person, as a daughter, any of that stuff. Everyone else gets this gift when I put that self-love into myself. And so I really hope others really have that desire to find that self-love and make that change. And you don't have to go as extreme as I've gone, but just knowing some of that, it's just life-changing. So
it really is.
It's sad, but sometimes we have to see ourselves from the external, because we're so deep into our negativity that we can't see the value and the beauty that we bring to the world. And so sometimes it's just stepping outside yourself and going, what are the great things about me? And I think have someone else answer that question at first if you need to do that, so that you can start believing it. Because I just remember, if you asked me 3 years ago, it would have been, I had some little bit in there, but I think we really convince ourselves some of that stuff is so true. And it's, like I said, I'm living proof that I'm living a life that I couldn't have dreamed of. And so to me it's endless. I don't even know where that could end. There's so much possibilities, and that's such a cool thing to experience. And so I just hope others will take that chance on themselves.
Yes.
Because
I think so many people too get stuck in a comparison game, and then they're using comparison to really identify, what they want to be or who they are, which is not an accurate measurement at all. So you can really stop comparing yourself.
That's a great point too, because what I sit in, the category I'm in for bodybuilding is women's physique. It's the most muscular. It's way more extreme than there's a lot of that are smaller women and stuff like that it's about kind of thinning down a little bit more and having muscle, but not mine is all about muscle. And I used to at first I was oh, people probably think she can't be. No, I'm just different. I'm built different. I'm different. And so I love that now. Now I'm oh, I'm all about muscles. I'm you might be different than that, and that's beautiful. Let's enjoy that. But I'm this is who I am now. And I'm I've become really proud of that. You know what? I put on muscle really well, and I like that. And muscle, that's another thing. A lot of people don't like muscles on women. I think it's sexy, and you know what? I'm okay with that. As long as my husband is okay with that and I'm okay with that, I'm cool with it. So
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a form of sexy. It's my form of beautiful, and I'm okay with that. Everyone likes something different, but to me,
it is. It's
awesome.
All
can be different.
Yep.
Be ourselves.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you for doing this. I really mean this. There's nothing better than motivating people to become a better them, because what a world we'd be in if people were moving towards happiness. Because the world would completely change if I just wish I could be you. You can. You absolutely can do this. I'm that's the thing. There is nothing in that way special that I'm different than anyone else that way. I started the same way. It's really giving yourself the power and the ability to do it mentally.
Yep.
More than anything is mentally. And to also just, like I said, give yourself what you give everyone else. Just give yourself that much, and you'll have so much more in life. It's just phenomenal when you think about it. What we do as moms for everyone else, if we just gave ourselves that. So when I see a young mom who's writing, is there a gym that has a daycare? I'm yes. And I'm proud of you. Go there.
Yes.
I'm
you want me to sign you up?
And then something. No, I'm I just love when people like, and I'm the first, if I see a social media thing, I used to be always crabby on social media. Now I'm like, if I see someone that's like kind of bashing a mom to be doing something better, I'm the first in there like, stop. We got to stop this. Good for her for doing something for herself, because we have to encourage that with each other as moms, like especially moms. Like we have to let ourselves be okay with, I'm so tired of hearing it's selfish of moms to do things like this. It is not, it is not, it is not. And I will bang that to the wall as long as I could, because as long as I can, because it is such a horrible stereotype to say something like that, because as moms, it is never selfish to give to ourselves. I mean, if we can make ourselves better, we make our family better and we make our children way better. So
Yes.
I want that to stop more than anything about this whole, it's selfish for you to think this way. No, it's not.
No.
And having people in our lives that support that stuff for us. Like, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like you making a huge change that you're making, though we have to get behind, we got to stop like trying to be like, we got to get behind people. Like, if that's what's going to make you happy and make you, then you know what? I'm behind you 100%. You go do it. What do I need to do to help you, support you that way? Like, we need to be more like that, I feel like, because sometimes we're always about judgment. And it's like, I'm not walking in your shoes, so I'm not going to judge that part of it. If that's what you need to do, then that's what you need to do. And good for you. And, we're in such a society where we judge so much that it's like, we'd be much happier if we just support each other a lot more, but it is what it is. So,
Yeah.
but it's like,
Exactly.
and I get a lot more accomplished, but
Yeah.
it is what it is, and our world's unique.